الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم اجعل اجتماعنا هذا اجتماعا مرحوما، واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما، ولا تجعل معنا ولا فينا ولا بيننا شقيا ولا مطرودا ولا محروما. جزاكم الله خيرا for coming tonight. It is my privilege to be among my brothers. I miss Masjid Umar. I used to give khutbah in it more frequently. But subhanallah, you never know. Maybe I'll start coming back again. Inshallah, always love it when I'm here. Inshallah, Brother Firas last week, he started talking some about why do we study Seerah and the importance of it. And please forgive us if some of the material that is presented might overlap. It's like, oh yeah, we heard this before. But inshallah, we try that we keep progressing within the material so we don't bore anybody. Having said that, listening to the same stuff, like if you think about it, a lot of us know a lot about Seerah, know about the story of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I asked you to tell me about the events of Ghazwat Badr, there's a very good chance that you'll be able to make, to come up with the main scheme and a lot of the details about what happened. This is true even for our children. Big reason why we study this is trying to get more into the details of what actually happened and to get some of the lessons. How can we benefit from this in our daily life? Learning the story of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in a sense similar to learning the stories of the prophets alayhim salawatullahi wa salamuhu. When we learn the stories of the prophets, we don't just learn that just for the amusement of it. It's not a bedtime story. Okay, we learn the stories of the prophets so we can learn from them, we can apply them. Allah Azza wa Jal told Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَكَذَلِكَ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. Indeed, we tell you stories about the prophets, so it will give you steadiness on the path. Okay, because you are, if you're in the shoes of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're the best person there is. Your message that you're trying to deliver to your people is the best message there is. It's clear. Your track record is clean. Yet you go to your people and then out of sudden they turn on you and they say, he's a liar, he's a magician, he's a sorcerer, he's a poet. Then you start, what's going on here? What's going on? And then you might start feeling the despair, this and that. Okay, so in our da'wah, we might encounter something like this as well. So we see what Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. How did he handle stuff like that to make it easier for us? All of us, dear brothers, have the responsibility of delivering the da'wah of Allah Azza wa Jal, the message of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the people that we know. And the way of da'wah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't easy. For the most part, it was full of struggles. Okay, it was full of people not hearing the message. It was full of people deliberately trying to undermine all his efforts and trying to just contain his message so it wouldn't spread among people. And this was the case from the moment that he was revealed at the age of 40, or his message was revealed to him at the age of 40, almost until he died. Most of the journey, for the most of the life, of the career, if you wish, of da'wah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the people that followed him were very little compared to the general population in the Arab Peninsula. Okay, except for the last 2 years, where people started to come into Islam in droves. وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. At that time, after Fatih Makkah, you would see that people just like, okay, to accept. He got only toward the end to the tipping point where people start saying, okay, this makes sense now. After he got the power, after he got his message across, and then people start believing in him. Okay, but before that, it was nothing but one struggle, one test, one calamity after another. Okay, so this is why it is important for us to know about the story of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To know about the story of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is important to know and to remember that his da'wah or his risala, the message that he got from him, from Allah Azza wa Jal, it didn't occur out of nowhere. Okay, he was not just a man living in the middle of the desert and out of sudden he just got a message and then started telling people, I am a prophet, follow me. Okay, it is deeply rooted in tradition. Okay, the tradition of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the prophets before him. Allah Azza wa Jal told Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to say, قل, say, ما كنت بدعا من الرسل. I am not just a new generation of prophets or messengers. I'm just like my brothers that preceded me. We are all delivering the same message. So when we say that I am a Muslim, my religion doesn't only fall back for like 1440 years ago. 1453 if you want to say, from that's exactly the time when Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was revealed. Okay, maybe a little more, last count. Okay, the point being, our message doesn't start with Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is the same message that was revealed to Sayyidina Isa, to Sayyidina Musa, to Sayyidina Ibrahim, to Sayyidina Nuh, and to Sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, who called us al-Muslimin? We call ourselves Muslim, right? Who was the one behind this name? Who knows? Who knows the answer to that? Who called us Muslimin? Sayyidina Ibrahim. Yes, this is mentioned in Al-Quran Al-Kareem. Okay, Allah Azza wa Jal said, مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ إِبْرَاهِيمُ هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. That this, your religion, is the same religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was the one who called you the Muslimin. This is very old in tradition. Sayyidina Ibrahim, we don't know exactly when he lived, okay, but he probably lived thousands of years ago. Okay, we know that Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, he was there 2,000 years ago, right? He was born 2,000 years ago and a fraction. Sayyidina Musa maybe 3,000 years ago. All right, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam maybe 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. The number is not important, but just to let you know, to give you an idea that we really go way back. We go way back. We go way back to the original message that Allah Azza wa Jal told Adam alayhi salam. From there, okay, so we are a continuum. Okay, at some point in time, the people who held the message were the people, the Bani Israel, the Israelites. Okay, and then until they changed the message. At that time, they were the preferred nation over everybody else until they changed. And then Allah Azza wa Jal revealed Isa alayhi salam to try to get them back. Okay, so this makes it easier for you to say when you tell people like, our Christian brothers start questioning you. It's like, your relationship with Jesus. And then it becomes easier to tell them, it's not like just, yeah, I respect the man. It's like, no, it's more than that. He's my man. Okay? He belongs to me. He probably belongs to me more than he belongs to you because you changed the message that he came with it. Okay? This gives you even a more powerful boost for what you're trying to present to people. Okay? We are it. Okay? We didn't just, because this is how we are portrayed in the literature of the people looking at the Islam from the outside. It's like these Muslims, they came in, they got little bits and pieces from Islam, little bits and pieces of Christianity, and then they made their own religion. They call it a made up religion. That's what we call us. Okay? However, when you really have the confidence that no, this precedes all of that, we go back to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jal challenged the people of the book. He told them, ما كان إبراهيم يهوديا ولا نصرانيا. Ibrahim, he was not a Christian nor a Jew. ولكن كان حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. He was a Hanif, he was a Muslim, he was never from those who associate with Allah Azza wa Jal. Make sense? Excellent. A very important point to look at, to see where Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where did he get his message? What was the landscape of what's happening in that area of the world around the time that his message, or even before he was born. So Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he is from the tribe of, who knows? Quraysh. Good, very good. Quraysh, who's the great grandfather of Quraysh, or of the Arab at that time? Before that, even before that, way before that, Ismail alayhi salam, right? So how did Ismail alayhi salam happen to be in that area of the land? You all know the story. Sayyidina Ibrahim, do you guys know where Sayyidina Ibrahim come from? Where's he from? He is from Iraq. Yes. Okay, he was born there, he was raised there, and then he moved. Okay, his movement's not important for our class today. The bottom line is he was married to more than one woman. One of them is Seerah. Okay, and she is the mother of Ishaq, and then Hajar. Okay, Hajar was her maid. All right, he got married to her because Seerah she was not able to conceive. She was barren. All right, and then he got married to Hajar. Hajar got pregnant. They have Ismail alayhi salam. Sarah couldn't take it. Jealousy hits. It's okay. And then Allah Azza wa Jal told Sayyidina Ibrahim that you have to move him. Where to move him? You have to go to that place, to the Arab Peninsula, to where Mecca is. It was just a valley between mountains. There is no water, there is no plants, there is nothing. And then he gave them some food, gave them some drink, and he left. The woman followed his steps, said, where are you leaving us? He wouldn't answer. He wouldn't even look back because he knew this was his order. His order is to leave them there. Then she asked, something clicked. Did Allah Azza wa Jal ask you to leave us here? He said, yes. Then she said, if he asked you to leave us here, then he will take care of us. End of story. Okay? She eats, she drinks until she was out. She has a baby. She needs to nurse him. She cannot nurse him if she cannot eat and drink. And then you all know the story where she started desperately looking for help, going between the hills of As-Safa and Al-Marwa. And she'll ask, if you're going, she's pleading to Allah Azza wa Jal, if you're going to help us, this is the time. I am really struggling here. Until she goes down and see that her baby boy is like just very happy. There's a lot of water. Okay, underneath that is the bi'r of Zamzam. Okay, now we have water. We have the essence of life. People were going by that area. They see birds in the sky. If there are birds, that means that there is a way to sustain life. They say, well, this is not an area that we thought that there is water or anything that we can do here. What is going on? So they went there and they saw Hajar and her son. And then they asked for permission if they can use the water and stay there. And that's exactly what happened. Okay, Sayyidina Ismail, he got older, he got married from the tribes of these people who were from that area. Sayyidina Ismail, is he a prophet or not a prophet? He is a prophet. Okay, so he was teaching the people around him all, the principles of Tawheed. The people around him, they accepted the message of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we know that Sayyidina Ibrahim visited Sayyidina Ismail in Mecca multiple times. The number and all the details about it, they're not very important. Okay, but we know that in one of them, Allah Azza wa Jal asked him, he said, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَعِيلُ. Now it is the time that we build the house of Allah Azza wa Jal. And where Allah Azza wa Jal showed them that the qawa'id, the foundation of the house was already there. It was already there from the time of Adam alayhi salam. Okay, they just need to build it on that same foundation. The story of building the Kaaba is probably well known to you. It's beyond the scope of what we want to do here. It just kind of gets us back that point in time, Allah Azza wa Jal, sometimes He asked Sayyidina Ibrahim to put his wife and child in a place that is barren, that there is no signs of life, because thousands of years later, not 100, not 200, thousands of years later. That will be the perfect place for him to send one of his great grandchildren, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, with a message that is going to change history. So what starts with something that looks like a calamity, that looks like a problem, that looks like it is not sustainable, thousands of years down the line, changed things a lot. Now, in these thousands of years, things were not rosy. They were not great. People left the message of Ismail alayhi salam. Okay, they changed their religion altogether. They became kuffar. They worshipped al-asnam. All that happened. Okay? And this is part of Allah Azza wa Jal plan. After all, we are all humans. We make our own decisions. Our decisions, even as Muslims now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be immune from mistakes forever. You being Muslim today does not mean that your children and your grandchildren will decide to continue the path. You want them to do that, but not even the prophets were able to do that. The great-grandchildren of Ismail alayhi salam, they worshipped al-asnam. The direct son of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, he wouldn't believe him. The wife of Sayyidina Nuh and the wife of Sayyidina Lut wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen. We as humans, we have the ability of making our own choices. It's up to you whether you want to come to the masjid or not. Okay? It's one thing if, like, when you come to the masjid one time or you don't, you come, you don't come. But sometimes people make the choice. I'm not the type that goes to the masjid. I am Muslim, yeah, maybe. But yeah, going to the masjid isn't my thing. Right? And then what happens, the problem is, 1 year after the other, it's like you ask him, when was the last time you went to the masjid? 20 years ago. Right? That's a problem. How much do you still have from your faith? If you never went to the masjid in all these years, how much of the deen did you really instill in your children? Did you really care about raising them Muslims or not? Okay, so this becomes an important aspect when we think about it. We try our best. We hope for our children the best. We try to create the circumstances for them to be in the right place. That doesn't always work because, after all, they're making their own decisions when they're able to. Make sense? So the Arab Peninsula, it was this isolated place. It has a lot of civilizations from all directions, but the inside of it, it was like a barren land, a big desert. Not a lot of the big superpowers in the world at that time has very big interests in going and having an actual military presence there. So this is why you would see that the Roman Empire or the Persian Empire, they would stop at the southern borders of Iraq or the southern borders of the Levant or Bilad al-Sham, and they wouldn't cross into the Arab Peninsula because there is nothing there. And this is why they were really very surprised when, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam became stronger and he started sending the small military, al-Ghazawat was-Saraya, small military expeditions to go and say, hey, we have a presence here. Like how it is now, like China now, what it does in the South China Sea, they create islands just to say that this is our territory. These islands mean nothing. It's just like, it's a made-up islands. However, the government of the United States, they say, okay, this is a big deal. You cannot do that. But why? Because it is asserting dominance over an area of land. This is why around the time of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he's sending these military expeditions, it might be a few hundred people. Okay, but then the Romans will say, oh, this is, no. This is not something that we can take lightly. And this is something, inshallah, if Allah Azza wa Jal gave us the permission of time and persistence, inshallah, we'll get to it when we start talking about Ghazwat Tabuk and Ma'arakat Mu'ta and stuff like that. So, inside the Arab Peninsula, it was a nothing. People did whatever people pleased. Outside of it, you had two big empires. You had the Roman Empire that was in the Levant. By the way, the native people of the Bilad al-Sham or the Levant were not Romans. They were Arabs, they were Syrian, they were other things that they were subjugated under the rule of the Romans. The same thing in Iraq. It was not Persians. The Persians come from what is Iran now. Okay, they were also the de facto power in that place. Okay, so they were not the original people of that land. And this is sometimes will help you kind of understand when the Muslim nation started to expand beyond the Arab Peninsula. One of the things that you're going to say, well, how come you as Muslims started expanding into their lands and started taking lands from other people? I mean, that's not fair. What are you guys doing? Okay, however, the people, the powers that were before Muslims in that area, it was not native to the area either. Okay, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. That if Allah Azza wa Jal did not allow people to push each other, if you wish, okay, the better force will prevail. If this didn't happen and everybody just stagnate and did their own thing, the entire land will go into corruption. There should be some sort of competition between people. Kind of think about, you know, an NFL quarterback or a high school quarterback. Which one is better? Why is an NFL quarterback better? Because he is facing significant competition. If they didn't do that, if they did not see that, they will not excel to the level that they need to do so they're able to deliver what they need to deliver. Does that make sense? This is true in everything in life. So, these empires at the northern part of Jazirat al-Arab, or the Arab Peninsula. The thing with them is, they felt like any occupying force that they are not able to maintain the order by themselves. Why? Because it is too costly. Too costly. So what would they do? Think about my area of the world now. What happens? We cannot have like a direct military invasion to that area and stay there forever. We're going to get people from within that land who will agree to collaborate with us, and we are going to rule that land indirectly through them. Does this sound familiar to what is happening in the Arab world in many other areas? Yeah, quite a bit. So in the southern borders of Iraq, the kingdom at that time, it's called Al-Manadhira. Okay, Banu al-Mundhir. They used to be kings and they pledged their allegiance to the Persian Empire. In the southern borders of Sham or the Levant, they were called Al-Manadhira. What did I say about Iraq? I did say the same thing, I think. I did say Al-Manadhira. Let me think. Yes, so that was actually, it is actually true, because the people in Sham, they're called Al-Ghassasin or Banu Ghassan, the people of Ghassan. Okay? They used to rule at least the southern part of Sham and they pledged their allegiance to the Roman Empire. The other big civilization around that area was in the south. What is in the southern border of the Arab Peninsula? What big country is that? Yemen. Right? Yemen is there. Yemen, they also had their own civilization before, in the past. Okay? The historians will say that most of the Arab that we know today, they came in from Yemen anyway. Okay? And then, from these people, they're Himyar and Saba. Saba, we have an entire chapter in Quran Kareem named after them and how big of a civilization that they had. However, they didn't believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, which led to their destruction. They had their own thing happening until the Persian they expanded their power, their military presence in that area. And then from Abyssinia, there comes Abraha. He kicks the Persians out. He rules. A lot of things that is not very important for us right now. Just to tell you that around the perimeter of the Arab Peninsula, again, there was a lot of commotion. How was the situation in Mecca? Just before revealing Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it was a semi-government that is led by Quraysh. Quraysh is the tribe of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. After Ismail, there was a lot of ups and downs of the progeny of Ismail alayhi salam. For the longest time, they were ruling Mecca. Okay, and then everybody was on the religion of Ismail alayhi salam. Time passes by, the great-grandchildren start changing things around. What was true 100 years ago does not hold today. The people of the progeny of Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam were pushed to the side. A lot of back and forth. just decades before Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam got to Mecca, or maybe like about 200 years around, something like that, the people, his tribe, gained control of the place. They have a government where they had a place where the people of Mecca, the elite, will sit down and they will decide on the important matters. That place was called Darun Nadwa. Okay, this is like where people meet. Okay, and not anybody, just the elite. They decide who they are going to fight. They decide on the treaties. They decide what to do with things, how to organize that. Them having the control over the most sacred symbol for the Arab people around that time, that is the Kaaba, gave them a high level that people will always look at them with respect. They were able to make treaties that because they are the people of the Haram, when they work, they were merchants, they work in trade. They were able to go and negotiate their trade deals without being concerned that somebody is going and hijack their caravans, because this was a common practice in the Arab Peninsula at that time. If there is somebody who's strong, they will go to somebody who's weak. Just because of that, they are able to just take whatever they want and do as they please. This is how it worked back then. Quraysh had a special situation because they had the control of the Kaaba, and they were in a relative safety, and they were in a relative prosperity compared to everybody else. And why do we say relative? Because if you compare still their lifestyle in comparison to the people outside of the Arab Peninsula, where when you had actual civilizations, when you had a lot of resources, the people in Mecca were still quite poor and quite disadvantaged. The people outside of the Arab Peninsula, and this kind of will take us to the next thing of how things were before Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam got his message. It was a civilization that has been going on for hundreds of years. These people, the Persians, the Romans, they had power, they had money, and then they stopped asking the question, what I am going to eat tonight. They start asking the question, how can I please myself? What can I do so I can get more resources for my benefit? And this will go to the elite. The common people, we don't care. They're not really that important. Okay, and then it's like really interesting when you look at it. Like at some point in time in the Persian Empire, one of their emperors, he will decide that we are going to do, there are no rules, basically. You can go and sleep with whomever, whenever, doesn't matter how. It's like it was, I don't know how to explain that, but it's like one huge, well, I cannot say this, we are on live. But you can get the idea. It was like there's no connection, like there are no rules at all. You can do whatever you want. Okay? Inside the Arab Peninsula, it was something similar to that. There was no limit for how many women a man can marry. Okay? If somebody's father died, he is able to marry his wives. Sometimes they took it to the next level, where a man would marry his mother or marry his daughter. It was ridiculous. Some of these things, and then when that happens, and then people, okay, this is not enough for us. Then they start taking it to the next level. And then you start seeing that homosexuality is on the rise. And then they start thinking all these questions about your identity, and about the gender, about this, and about pushing the boundaries. Does any of that sound familiar? Yes, lots of it. Why? Because now you are not worried about where your next meal is coming from. You're not worried about your safety if you're going to make it to the next day or not. Okay? You have so much that your fitrah is being suppressed so much that you're not even asking yourself the big questions. Your question now becomes, how can I please myself? Okay? Allah Azza wa Jal said, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ. Okay, do you see to this person who worship their desire? Okay, and Allah Azza wa Jal misguided them, although they have the knowledge. Okay, this is not somebody who doesn't know anything. Allah Azza wa Jal gave them the means to be able to know and use their brains, yet they decided with their desires, with their hawa, to go and follow something else. Okay? So a lot of what the people around that time that they encountered and they lived in daily life, day in and day out, seems to a bigger extent very similar to what we are living nowadays. So that was part of the environment that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam had to face when he was revealed. Now we come to the religion of the Arab around that time. We say that the Arabs, originally, they followed the deen of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam via his son Ismail alayhi salam, right? However, with time, this changed. The way that this changed, there was this man, he was a very respected person among his people. He was called Amr ibn Luhay. Amr ibn Luhay, he went to Asham, to the Levant. He was a merchant, like his people. He went and saw the people in that place, okay, worshipping idols. He said, what are you guys doing? They said, these are our gods, we worship them, they get us closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. He said, how about you give me one of them so I can take it to my people, so we do the same thing that you do. Okay, so they did. They gave him a sanam, or an idol called Hubal. Okay, Hubal is one of the most famous idols that the Arab worshipped in the time of ignorance at that time. Okay, and then because of that, because he was the one that he started this bad deed, he's like, we know him still by name today. And Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that his punishment in Jahannam is going to be very severe, because he is the origin that led to that. Of course, this does not absolve people from the responsibility. If people in themselves, they didn't find the way, or they didn't justify it to themselves to deviate from the message of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhim salam, they wouldn't do that. But with time passing and nobody reminding them about how things should be, then they went into that level of worshipping the idols. When Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered Mecca, when he was victorious and conquered Mecca, there was 360 idols around the Kaaba that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tipped over, and then he asked his companions to get it outside of Mecca and burn all of them. And then, inshallah, maybe we will be able to talk about that later. Each tribe, they had their own idol that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with his wisdom, he would get people from that tribe who are Muslims. He would say, you are going to take care of your own problem. I am not going to do this for you. So you are going, and you're going to destroy these idols. The people of Mecca, their religion was a mix of things that they inherited from Ismail alayhi salam, and a lot of additions to it. So for example, taking a tawaf, taking laps around the Kaaba, this tradition comes from Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam. They maintained that. Doing the Hajj, doing the Umrah, slaughtering sheep or cows or camels for Allah Azza wa Jal during the Hajj season and otherwise. All these traditions are part of the deen that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi or Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam taught them at that time, but they added things to them. So part of that is like what they did with their idols. They will make sujood to it. They will slaughter animals to it. Then they will say, they will give the idols part of their food. Some of the stuff that they did was ridiculous. It's like, this part of our food only goes to the idols. Nobody can touch it. This part of food will go to Allah. However, if something goes to Allah, Allah is merciful, He's forgiving. We'll be able to eat from that. But we cannot eat from the stuff that goes to the idols. Subhanallah al-Azim. Then they decided, some of it is like beyond ridiculous. Okay, these people, they raised sheep and cows and camels. They decided that if a sheep, for example, like 10 pregnancies back to back, it has like females with no single male between them, it's like, okay, then, or a camel or something like this, then we cannot touch this. This has a very special level that we cannot, the only one who can like have some of its milk, for example, only if we have a guest. Otherwise, this is like off limits. We cannot touch that one. Okay? You can say, okay, well, this is innocent, who cares? The problem is, dear brothers, is when you decide that there is an action that it is now deen, and you say that this thing is halal and this thing is haram, based on your desires and what you want it to be, without any relation, like without a reference. Okay, that is a huge problem in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. For example, if you want to relate to something that we are dealing with today, look at some of the laws that are based here in this country, for example, or elsewhere, where something is considered okay. There is no problem with doing a certain thing a certain way. Let's look at women clothes, for example. If you look at 70 or 80 years ago, if a woman goes out in public with, indecent clothes, she will get a ticket from the police. Now she can go with hardly anything. It's okay. Times change, right? So changing laws or changing the rules based on our desires without basing that on anything is a huge problem. And it's not only about making things haram, saying that this is haram, this is haram, this is haram, this is haram, this is not allowed. Also making something halal as well. Okay, if you say there's no problem with this, there's no problem with this, this is equally as problematic. Okay, Allah Azza wa Jal, He took it upon Himself to say what is halal and what is haram. It's not based on our desires and what we feel is right for that day. Okay, because when this progresses, people will go to the level that, you can do whatever whenever. And then there is, the moral code itself disintegrates when that happens. Because you're just basing it on how people feel for that decade or that century or whatever. Does that make sense? Another thing that the people of Mecca believed in, they kind of to give themselves a status. Okay? They would say that in Hajj, we are not going to Arafat. Arafat is outside the borders of the Haram, and we are the people of Mecca. We're not leaving. We're only going to Muzdalifah. Okay, and everybody else, all the rest of the Arab, they're going to go to Arafah, and then from Arafah they can come to Mecca after the day of Arafah is over. Okay, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam changed that. Allah Azza wa Jal changed that. He told them, ثُمَّ أَفِيضُوا مِنْ حَيْثُ أَفَاضَ النَّاسِ. When you make ifada after Arafah, you go do it from the rest where the rest of the world is doing it. You don't have a special status over them. Okay? Another thing that they did, they decided that if you are an Arab and you're coming and you're not from the people of Mecca and you're coming to Mecca for the sake of Umrah, then you cannot eat the food that you brought with you. You can't. You have to buy food from us. This is how it goes. They decided that if you're coming for Umrah or Hajj, if you want to make tawaf the first time around the Kaaba, then you're only allowed to do it if you're wearing clothes that you got from the people of Mecca. Why is that? They're selling these clothes to people. So I'm going to sell you my clothes so you can make tawaf with it. Okay, so if you're coming from afar and you're able to do that, you're buying clothes. What if you don't? You know what people did back then? They made tawaf naked. Women, they will go and try to do it at night if they're not able to, and trying to cover themselves up to the best of their ability. But they would say, well, that's how it goes. Literally, that's what they say. Part of my body is going to be exposed today. There is nothing that I can do about it. Okay? That's what they did. That's what they truly did. Okay? These are the same people that decades later, when they accept the message of Islam, they will be the best soldiers for Allah. Why? Because still deep in their tradition, it wasn't all bad. Okay? They were still, if they are making a treaty, they are going to honor it. Even if that means they're going to die while they're trying. If somebody promised something, he's going to do it. Okay? So it wasn't all bad. However, there's a lot of things that got introduced into their community that was not part of it. Part of it, Subhanallah al-Azim, the zawaj, or kind of marriage. They had different types of marriage. Okay, part of the marriage that we know is like what we know today, like a man gets married to a woman, he pays her a dowry, and then it's his. She's his, not it's his. She's his, and then, she, he will be committed to her, she will be committed to him, what we know today. However, they had this other type of marriage where a man will tell his woman that, he will not touch her, okay, and then he will tell her to go and sleep with a certain man, like one of the intelligent men or the people of status, this or that. So go sleep with him until you become pregnant, and then come back to me. When she does, the boy will be his. Okay, and then, because he's hoping that this boy is going to be intelligent based on the genes of the father. They'll do something like this. They will take it to the next level. Okay, and the reason to give you the example is just kind of to see like how twisted the mind can be sometimes. That 10 men will go to a woman, they'll all sleep with her, okay, until she becomes pregnant. And then after she gives birth, she will call all of them, and then she will say, this boy belongs to you. And that's it. He cannot say no. That's it. Okay? Then another thing is like if one of these women, or prostitutes, really, that's where they were. Okay, she had a boy, and then you decide that, this boy is good. I am going to go and I'm going to decide that he is my son because I slept with his mother in the past, and I think he's mine. And this is what, then in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal, this was a big problem. That people, he said, Allah Azza wa Jal said, "Ud'uuhum li'aba'ihim." That if you are going to call a kid, you're going to call it after his father. And Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam made it a ruling that the father is the one who was with that woman or married to that woman, regardless of whomever did what around that time. Okay, when you look, subhanAllah, in the books of Seerah, they will say that there was this person, they wouldn't say who he was, went to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he would say that this boy is mine. I slept with his mother, and they wouldn't call who she was. Okay, and then Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he will tell him, nope, you're not doing that. This is not, he's not yours. Okay, interestingly enough, even within our ranks, the time passes by and we start changing things. So even the Muslim Ummah is not immune from changing the teachings of our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or how we approach our religion. Because by the way, if we didn't, we will be in the best shape that we are on today. But big part of our problems is because people tend to change what they are on. Please let me know when I have to stop, by the way. We still, how much time do we have? Still 20 minutes? I don't know if we can do this for 20 more minutes. Let's see what happens. Are you guys bored? Because we can totally stop. Okay. All right, let's do this for a little longer. And this person that we are talking about, that the books of Seerah didn't say who he was, it was Abu Sufyan. Okay, Abu Sufyan. He was the leader of Mecca, and the boy that he wanted to claim, okay, his name was Ziyad. Okay, so around for a long time during the Muslim history, he was known as Ziyad ibn Abi. That we really don't know exactly who his father was. He's Ziyad, the son of his father. That is the actual translation of his name. Did that prevent him from being his ancestry was not well known? Did that prevent him from taking a leadership role in the Muslim Ummah? Actually, it didn't. Okay, he was given some roles into leading the Muslim Ummah to some extent, until it was the turn of Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. He was the leader of the Muslim at that time. He decided, okay, enough is enough. My father said that he was his kid. I am calling, he's my brother now. And then for that period of time, he was called Ziyad ibn Abi Sufyan. Okay, it's quite interesting. So kind of the reason we bring this up is just to say that, time passes by, a few decades later, things start to change. And this is part of life, and this is part of what Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, إن الله يبعث على رأس كل 100 سنة من يجدد لهذه الأمة دينها. I'm paraphrasing. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that every century, every 100 years, Allah Azza wa Jal will give this ummah, He will get into this ummah somebody or someone or an institution or whomever you want, who will renew the religion for this ummah. kind of to get it back to its original roots. Okay, Alhamdulillah, what is allowing us to be able to do that is our scholars and our ummah in general, one generation after the other. It made a lot of effort into conserving the book of Allah Azza wa Jal and the Sunnah for Rasulullah. The book of Allah Azza wa Jal, He made it that He is saving it, even whether we were here or not. Allah Azza wa Jal saved His book. This is one of the huge, big differences between us as Muslims and the other religions before us, because the other religions, their books were not immune to the change. And this is why, as we will know, you will see the Torah, you will see the Gospels, and you will see multiple versions of it. And it's like, then you will ask and say, okay, well, this is the impression of this person about this book, and this is why we're having the differences and stuff like that. However, Allah Azza wa Jal told us very clearly in the Quran how things got changed from one generation after another, how things got altered by their scholars, how things were hidden, and how things, hidden when it didn't suit them, and then it was revealed when it suited them better. We don't have this problem with the Quran. The book, as we know it, has been the same. It has been, even if all the copies of the Quran are burned today and none of them existed, the book itself will not vanish. Why? Because we have thousands upon thousands of hafidhin, huffaz. They memorize the Quran by heart, one generation after another, from this day until you get to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And if you don't know, these people who memorize the Quran, who got it as a direct message from their shaykh, from the people before them, okay, and they recite the entire Quran from start to finish on their shaykh with the ahkam, like with the tajweed and everything, you get actually a piece of paper. You get a piece of paper to say that I am giving this person, the license, if you wish, to teach Quran. And I'm telling him that I'm doing this exactly the same way that my Shaykh X told me on his Shaykh Y, and then they will start writing one name after another until they reach to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. To this day, okay, until today, we have people. And how many generations do you think between us and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam? If you're to guess, how many men between us and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Give me a number. What's that? 20? Okay, a little more than that. Okay, a little more. Less than that. So actually, some of the mashayikh that I have seen, between them and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, only 30 men. Okay? Only 30. But, part of this, like a very young student will be reading on a very old sheikh. So this kind of eliminates 2 generations in between. But they had, like the best sheikh who can, come up with the list with a very short list between him and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So the conservation of our book helps us to get the message of Allah Azza wa Jal back to its own origins. Let's see. Were there other religions in the Arab Peninsula other than al-Mushrikeen? There were Jews. Okay, a lot of them came in from Yemen. A lot of them, they were in Yathrib, or what is now Al-Medina. Some of them were in Mecca as well. There are a lot of Christians that came in to the Arab Peninsula during mission work, that came with the Romans, or some of them came from Abyssinia. And then there was this very minor group of people. They're called Al-Hanifiyun. They are a group of people who didn't worship anything with Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, they didn't accept worshipping al-asnam or the idols. Okay, they only worshipped one God. The people of Quraysh at that time, the Arab in general, they knew God by name, like the same thing that we know Him today. They knew Him. They knew that He was the Lord of the Lords. Okay, they have no problems believing in that. Their biggest problem was that they thought it was okay to associate other idols with Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, and they thought that although these idols hold a lesser power or a less level than Allah Azza wa Jal, yet they were worthy enough. And they were not only worthy enough from a belief standpoint, but for them they had a secondary gain from that as well. Okay, why? Because if they had like an entire economy built around having the idols in Mecca around that time. So people will come, this is part of the religion that they made, that they have to slaughter sheep to the idols. Who do you think will get the money? Or who will get the meat? They will have control of how is that being divided. All the taxation, all the things that came in from having the idols, they had something in it. So they didn't have really any motive of abandoning that for a man coming to them to tell them, say one word, La ilaha illallah. Okay, because they were smart people. They understand, they realize if we are going to do something like that, abandoning that that means that they have to abandon their life the way that they know it. Make sense? Okay, we did talk about this. Part of what the people in the Arab Peninsula found around that time, that if you want to go fight other people and you win, then there are no limits. Then you own everything that they own. You own their money, you own their cattle, and you own their women as well. And you enslave their children. That is the status. This is how it was. Okay, it was a big deal trying to get out of something like that. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is something that it will be very easy to understand, or very, very easy if we start kind of putting the mindset when you're studying the Seerah, that you cannot judge the events of the Seerah of what you see today. For example, the issue of slavery will come. Did Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam take slaves from the people that he fought? Yes, he did. Would you consider this a bad action? Definitely you're going to say, yeah, this is absolutely a war crime. This is not something that you're supposed to do today. Right? Why? Because then you try to judge the actions of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a mindset of what's happening today. Big part of why I have been talking for the last 45 minutes is to tell you that you can't do that. You have to look at the Seerah from the eyes of somebody who lived in the Arab Peninsula and the areas around it around that time. And then it becomes easier to understand why he did it this way. By the way, it is very hard to defend, like to the coming generations, a lot of the stuff that's happening now. Okay, look, like when you go to Iraq and you kill over 1 million people just to do something, this is not justifiable. This is not justifiable, especially that the thing that you went to do wasn't there, like that, the arms of mass destruction, etc., etc. What's happening in Palestine now, what's happening in Lebanon today, is not something that you can justify down the line. For now, people are just watching. I'm not talking about us Muslims. I'm talking about people, from the community around us. And it's like, it's too bad. This "it's too bad" is the same thing that people did in World War II, for example, when Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened. It's too bad. Does that absolve you from the responsibilities? No. And you will not really be able to justify that down the line. So when you look at the Seerah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, remember it happened in a certain historic context, that you cannot take it out of that context and say, look at Muhammad, he's a bloodthirsty person. He dabbles in slavery. He married so many women. He did this, he did that. You cannot do that without a full understanding of how things were for him around that time. Make sense? Excellent. Very good. All right. Remember what the other aspect of the religion or their the social situation that they had at that time? They loved to have a lot of kids. Why? Because these kids when they're boys and they become older and they become men, they'll be able to defend you. Okay. However, having a girl is problematic, because if you're a part of an Arab tribe and somebody comes and defeats you and then take that girl and now it is his slave, and now this will kind of this will shame you for the rest of the time. So what was the solution that people came in at that time? They will kill little girls. Okay, they will bury them a hole. They will put them alive, and then they will just close the hole. Is this fiction? Historic fiction? No. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned that in the Quran. He said, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Maw'uda, it's this little girl who was buried alive. Okay, Allah Azza wa Jal will ask her, why was I killed? Why was I killed? Okay, so this was some part of what Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to deal with at that time. I want to stop here, inshallah. We have not started talking about the Seerah. I will try to get with Brother Firas, inshallah, planning, inshallah, to be here next week. We'll see if he allows me to do that or not. And then kind of will flip-flop. I'm sure that you find what Brother Firas comes with is much better than what I am presenting to you. Just forgive us. He cannot be here all the time. So you have to deal with me for some time. And أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Or if you have a comment you want to say, we can make this like an interactive session if you have something that you want to share with the group. Oh, yeah. Let me ask you this. Who learned something new today? Who's like had a piece of information that actually, never heard of it before? Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And, nobody knows everything. I myself, some of the stuff that I present to you, I learned it before the lesson.